My name is Rose Jones. I'm 25 years old. People say homes hold memories. Mine didn't remember birthdays or laughter. It remembered what I did, the meals I cooked that went unthanked, the socks I found crumpled under couches, the bedtime stories I read while someone else posted family time online. I was the echo in the hallways, the voice only noticed when it stopped. It happened on a Tuesday, that kind of evening that smells like reheated sauce and old arguments. Mom, Elaine, dropped her fork onto a chipped plate, glanced at me over her wine glass, and said it like a punchline. "If you want to live here, you'll need to start paying rent." I froze. For a second, I thought about laughing, but Ethan, my older brother, the self-proclaimed king of the couch, burst into a laugh without pausing his video game. Camila, his wife, twirled a glass of Cabernet at the kitchen island, her giggle floating through the room. Mom smirked the way she always did when she thought she was giving wisdom instead of delivering a slap. Rent. I was standing by the stove, a towel slung over my shoulder, a laundry basket hooked on my hip, a routine I'd followed so many times my body didn't need to think anymore. Cook, clean, bath the twins, put the twins to bed, switch the laundry, prep lunches, set the coffee, answer school emails. Mom didn't notice. She never did. I knew the twins' shoe sizes, their favorite songs before sleep, the way one of them held his breath before crying. I knew every bill due date because they went to my inbox. I knew which lights flickered when the power surged. Every chore unnoticed by the rest of the house had already been done by me. "Family contributes," Mom added, chin-tipped, as if waiting for applause. "You're not a guest here, Rose." I said nothing. Not a word about the groceries on their table bought with my card, not a word about the Wi-Fi bill Ethan never touched, or the nights I spent rocking the twins while their parents enjoyed evenings out. There's a fatigue that can't be measured, the kind that builds every time you swallow your worth. That night, I finally did something I hadn't done in years. I set the towel down, placed the laundry basket on the chair, and walked to my room. No one followed. Why would they? I had trained them not to notice me unless I served a purpose. My room, the one space still loyal, was mine. I opened the closet, grabbed my duffel, and shoved in jeans, sweaters, t-shirts, underwear, my laptop, chargers, and a folder with my documents. I smelled the lavender sachet I'd bought myself, the one thing I'd purchased purely for me, and realized I hadn't noticed it in weeks. I slipped the grocery and gas cards tied to my account into my wallet. For years, they had been my chains. I broke them quietly. On my way out, I paused at the twins' doorway. Two small shapes, two steady breaths. I didn't hate them. I never would. I hated being invisible while everyone else posed for photos in the house I held together. The living room hummed with the small, smug sounds of the family, oblivious to the quiet storm leaving. Camilla's bracelets clacked. Ethan's controller clicked. Mom's wineglass thudded against the coaster. I could have delivered a speech about love becoming labor, about how my efforts had been invisible debts, but speeches are for people who care. I didn't. I walked out. The front door creaked the same way it always had. I'd oiled that hinge last month. No one thanked me then either. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, eyes glued to her screen. "Out," I said. Not angry, not crying, just done. The motel I found wasn't fancy. A neon sign blinked half-heartedly, spelling hotel, like it had given up. The room smelt like lemon cleaner and stale air, but when I sank on the bed and let my duffel slump to the floor, the silence wrapped around me like a blanket. No cartoons blaring, no little fists on the bathroom door, no sudden desperate calls of "Rose!" The hush wasn't empty, it was mine. By morning, my phone had erupted. Texts, calls, Goop messages, all bristling with tension. "Mom, where did you go? We need to talk." "Ethan, are you serious?" "Camila, we have plans tonight. Come back." Even my sister Grace, who lives states away and only texts for favors, chimed in. I scrolled. I didn't reply. I ordered breakfast. Pancakes, syrup in a little plastic coffin, eaten slowly. I watched a movie where problems could be solved in 90 minutes, then began searching for a short-term rental. The fifth attempt worked. A tiny studio with a kitchenette, a messy tree outside the window, and no questions about my few mugs or single plant. I booked it with my card. My hand shook. Freedom and fear can live in the same palm. Back at the motel, I packed slowly this time, as though folding away a version of myself that had given too much. The part that smiled and said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. The part that refilled glasses, held her breath, and pretended every cut didn't sting. Before leaving, I opened my messages again. More had come in. "Mom," breezy and brittle, "we're having dinner tonight. Come by." "Ethan, the twins asked for you." "Camila, we left a mess in the laundry. Can you fix it tomorrow?" I stared at that last one so long it blurred. Even in my absence, my orbit was assumed theirs to command. I set the phone face down. My studio apartment, my tiny, imperfect, independent space, looked like possibility with a price tag I'd finally paid. I unpacked my 3 mugs, one chipped, one marked Monday's Child, one plain white. Groceries arrived. Pasta that cooked in 8 minutes, a jar of olives, bread that cracked under my fingers. I made grilled cheese, ate it hot, and stared out the window. No one called my name. No one barged in. The quiet wasn't loneliness. It was the sound of being found. By evening, I realized something. I had been exhausted for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. The silence didn't demand anything from me. It was my sanctuary. But peace, I was about to learn, never stays silent forever. The days after that felt surreal. I woke up without the usual tight knot in my chest. No one was yelling for me to clean something. No one was muttering about homework or bills. And the twins weren't crying for attention I had already given 3 times that night. It was quiet in a way that didn't feel empty. It felt like breathing for the first time after years underwater. I found myself moving slower, deliberately. I made my coffee without thinking about anyone else's preferences. Dark roast, just the way I liked it. The mug warmed my hands. And for a brief moment, I realized I hadn't had a moment like this in years. I didn't check my phone. I didn't rush to clean something invisible. And for the first time, I could just exist. But silence has a way of testing you. After a few hours, the notifications started again. This time, the messages weren't angry. They were pleading. Mom's texts were clipped, desperate. "Rose, please, come home. Everything's falling apart." Ethan tried to guilt me. "We can't manage without you. The bills, the kids, everything." And Camilla's messages were the worst, thinly veiled threats of emotional collapse. "The twins are asking for you. You're making them cry. Come back." I read them all, then scrolled past. I didn't reply. I didn't feel anything, except a curious sense of power. I realized that for years, I had been invisible, and now they were the ones feeling the absence. It was like the world had flipped upside down, and I was standing on solid ground for the first time. I decided to fully embrace the new space I had. I went to the local grocery store and bought things I actually wanted. Fancy chocolate, fresh fruit, and bread that wasn't pre-sliced. I cooked for myself. Not reheated meals for someone else, not dishes that would disappear while I was still cleaning up the crumbs, but real meals that I could savor. The first bite of a hot grilled cheese sandwich, alone in my apartment, felt revolutionary. By the second week, I was starting to feel more like myself than I had in years. I organized my tiny apartment in ways that made sense to me. The mugs I bought were lined up on a shelf like trophies. one with a chip, a plain white one, and a quirky Monday's Child's mug I'd secretly loved for months. It felt good to have the space reflect me, even in these small details. But of course, they didn't let it stay peaceful. One morning, I woke up to an onslaught of texts from Camilla. "Rose, the kids are inconsolable. Why are you doing this?" Ethan was in the same boat. "You can't just disappear like this. You left everything in chaos." And Mom, oh Mom, her messages tried to mix guilt and manipulation. "We raised you to be a good girl. How could you abandon us?" I stared at the screen, half amused, half annoyed. Then I realized something. I wasn't abandoning them. I was merely taking care of myself for the first time. And in a strange, quiet way, it felt almost revolutionary. I started to laugh softly, shaking my head. They had no idea what it was like to live my life, to carry the weight of everyone else's needs, while mine disappeared into a background of chores, reminders, and unspoken expectations. And now, finally, the roles were reversed. The first real test of my resolve came when I found a video in my inbox. Ethan had filmed it. My old bedroom, the carpet I'd meticulously cleaned countless times, the drawers I'd organized for years. He was prying up a loose floorboard. Behind the camera, Camilla's voice whispered, "Is it really there?" And there it was. My old locked metal box, the one I'd stored years of personal documents, tax files, client data, and freelance work in. They thought they had leverage again, but what they didn't realize was that I was prepared. Calmly, I called Liam, my cybersecurity friend, and explained the situation. Within minutes, he had remotely secured every device, wiped old backups, and made sure that nothing could be accessed. If they tried, all they would get was corrupted files. I smiled quietly to myself, sipping my coffee. For years, they had treated me like a utility, an invisible scaffolding they could lean on whenever convenient. And now what? Now they were the ones left dangling. They had no control, no access, and I had finally drawn the line. Yet just when I thought I could breathe fully, they tried again. A flood of login attempts, frantic emails, desperate phone calls. Ethan tried to justify it. Camilla wept into her screen, and Mom's messages dripped with faux indignation. I let it all play out silently. The quiet thrill of boundaries is unlike anything else. It's not vindictive. It's just relief. Relief that comes from reclaiming what's yours. The next few weeks passed in a strange blend of freedom and vigilance. I worked, cooked, laughed without checking over my shoulder, and slowly built a life that belonged entirely to me. The first night I slept without waking up to some crisis I had to solve for someone else, I felt a wave of calm so intense it almost brought tears to my eyes. For the first time, my own heartbeat was enough. But peace, I quickly learned, is never permanent when the people you've raised to rely on you suddenly realize you're untouchable. Social media posts began appearing, manipulative and guilt-laden. Camilla shared pictures of the twins holding up handmade signs saying, "We miss Aunt Rose." It was designed to pressure me into returning. But this time, I didn't bite. I let the notifications pile up. Then the tide began to turn in a way that I hadn't expected. Friends, co-workers, people who had seen the reality of my years of silent labor began posting evidence, screenshots of payments, texts, and reminders that contradicted every claim Camilla made. Within hours, her carefully crafted narrative crumbled. It was exhilarating. For the first time, my life's truth was visible to the world without me having to explain a word. And the best part? The fallout wasn't for me. It was for them. The people who had treated kindness as currency were finally seeing the consequences of taking it for granted. By the end of that week, they had tried everything. Emotional appeals, manipulation, social pressure, and I remained calm. grounded, free. My little apartment, once a temporary stop, had transformed into a sanctuary, a place where I could exist without guilt, without obligation, without the constant drain of being everything to everyone else. And just when I thought I could finally relax, something happened that made me question everything I thought I'd left behind. Just when I started to feel that calm could last, a new twist arrived. It wasn't a text or a call, it was a knock at the door. I froze. No one knew my exact address except family. My heart thumped, not with fear, but with a strange anticipation. I opened the door slowly, and there they were, Mom, Ethan, and Camila, standing on my doorstep with faces full of pleading, frustration, and exhaustion. The twins clung to Camila's hands, looking uncertain and worried. Mom's voice trembled as she started, "Rose, we didn't mean—" I held up my hand. Stop. Just stop. For years, I had been trapped in their chaos, cleaning up their messes, calming tempers, hiding my own needs. And now, here they were, finally vulnerable, finally seeing what life was like without me. Camila stepped forward, voice shaky. We can't do this without you. Please, come back." I looked at the twins. I wanted to hug them, yes, but I realized that for years, love had been twisted into obligation. They had been used as pawns in a game I never agreed to play. I took a deep breath and said the words I'd rehearsed in my mind for months. I am here. For me. Not for you. Not to fix your mistakes. Not to rescue you. Silence. They didn't know how to respond. Then Ethan broke it, his voice cracking. "So, what now? We just live like this?" "Yes," I said calmly. "You live with the consequences of your choices. I've been carrying all of you for too long. Now it's time for you to stand on your own." Mom's lips trembled. She wanted to argue, to manipulate, to guilt me, but this time I didn't give her the chance. I turned and stepped inside my apartment, closing the door behind me. The next days were peaceful in ways I never thought possible. I walked in the park without checking my phone every 10 minutes. I cooked meals without anyone hovering. I laughed out loud, knowing that my happiness wasn't conditional. And then something unexpected happened. Without my constant intervention, my family began to find their rhythm. They stumbled, yes. They argued, yes. But slowly, they figured out how to handle responsibilities without me as a crutch. The twins learned to manage small tasks. Ethan started taking care of the bills properly. Camila, even she began to understand what it meant to grow up and take responsibility. Months later, I saw them, not as a part of my life, not as my burden, but as people I cared about from a safe distance. I realized something powerful. Boundaries don't break love. They create it in its healthiest form. I finally felt free to live my life fully, to pursue my dreams, to exist without guilt or constant pressure. And in that freedom, I discovered something I long forgotten. Happiness isn't something you give to others at the cost of yourself. It's something you take, fiercely and unapologetically, until it fills you completely. For years, I had been invisible in my own life. Now I was finally seen by myself. And sometimes when the house is quiet and the sun streams in just right, I still smile at the thought that for the first time in my life, I didn't have to sacrifice everything for everyone else. I had finally learned the hardest lesson of all. The most important person to protect isn't them, it's you. And just when I thought the story had ended, something happened that changed everything one last time. But that's a story for another day. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to follow the rest of my journey.